I guess we can start our discussion. First of all, thank you all for being here. Some call it social distancing. I call it physical distancing, because socially we are all very similar and equal. This discussion is going to last about half an hour to 40 minutes. We're going to go through a block of not so serious and a bit serious questions. And then we will move further on. So I would like to introduce our speakers. Her Excellency Zorica Bukinac, Ambassador of Republic of Slovenia in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Her Excellency Urlike Hartman, Ambassador of Republic of Austria to Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we are going to have two more speakers online. They have recorded their answers on our questions before, and we will be playing Her Excellency Ivana Hlavsova, Ambassador of Czech Republic to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Her Excellency Johanna Stromquist, Ambassador of Kingdom of Sweden to Bosnia and Herzegovina. This discussion will be in English and will last about half an hour, as I already said. So let's start. Your Excellency, as I read and I did a bit of my research on your own biography, you've been in politics for above 30 years, and you've been in different types of politics. You've been in research, in politics, in diplomacy, and so on and so forth. Can you tell us a bit more about what is the main difference between political approach of man and of woman?
Thank you, and good evening once again. I'm sorry, I have to correct. I have not been in politics. I've never been in politics, but it has just been diplomacy, which is very different. Because I'm not sure whether I would be a good politician, but I try to be a good diplomat. But the question, what's the difference when we talk about diplomacy between men and women? I think it's not only in diplomacy. I think it's a bit the approach, how you try to come to an agreement. I think this is the art of diplomacy, to come to an agreement without waging war, but just by negotiations. Very often, and I do not want to generalize that all men are like this and all women are like this, but there are certain tendencies that sometimes with the men you see quite harsh positions. And for some of them then difficult to get away from certain positions. And with women, from the very beginning, trying to find a solution, trying to find a compromise. It doesn't mean that it's always easier that way, but I think that's how I see the main approach to coming to an agreement, whether this is in an embassy, whether this is within a country, or whether this is in international politics.
Thank you. Your Excellency, it's a very simple question. Being that you are also in politics and diplomacy and research since the 90s, as I recall, how did you end up in politics, knowing that in Yugoslavia and so on and so forth, it must have been a bit harder for women than men to enter the politics and this diplomatic arena and this diplomatic corps?
Well, first of all, good evening to everyone. Dobro večer svima. Like my colleague Ula said, I'm not generalizing, and I can speak of my own personal experience for one, and at the beginning of my career, I started as a scientist, actually, and I did observe as well. I belong to a generation which was brought up in not a system but environment where doubting that woman can do a certain job was out of the question. It was never spoken of. So as I entered my professional career in the area which is supposedly to be and was men-dominated, to me, ever since I was a little child, that was my ambition, that was my interest. Nobody in the entire time of my education ever doubted that ambition and that goal. And having that professional interest in security, defense, military, power, I ended up in diplomacy because of practical reason and interest of the institution or of the state, which needed a certain type of expertise to be really exact, so you understand what I'm talking about. I spent my beginning of my career at the university as a researcher, and I never ever reached the doctorate because of the 91 events. And right after that, because of my expertise, I was called to start building our defense system. And after 17 years, as we entered NATO, Ministry of Foreign Affairs invited me to help them integrate into NATO, because they needed someone who could connect both worlds, world of military and defense and world of diplomacy. And this is where I'm now today.
Thank you. And now we are going to hear Ambassador Stromquist from Sweden. She's going to say her greetings online. Unfortunately, she's very sorry that she cannot attend due to other businesses.
So many times since I was appointed the Swedish ambassador to Bosnia and Herzegovina, I have been asked, how come you're a woman, an ambassador? How come you became an ambassador as a woman? And this question surprises me every time. I think because to me, that has always been something obvious. I'm a diplomat and I wanted to become an ambassador. But at the same time, I find myself being impressed by women brigadier generals and women astronauts. So we all ask this question. And to me, my hope and my dream is that one day, very soon, we stop asking that question because everybody, men and women, should be able to become exactly what they want.
After Swedish ambassador, we are going to hear an answer to the first question by our Czech ambassador. And the question was, what do you consider the largest challenges that the time we live in has for contemporary women, and how to face them?
There are so many challenges in the current world which we live, and most of them cannot be divided whether they more affect women or men. Because now we have to face the pandemic of COVID-19. But of course, the long-term challenges as climate change, ecological problems, coping with the life of digitalization are same for men and women all around the world. What still I feel, but maybe I am still feeling too traditional, makes it more difficult for women is that, of course, biologically we are not the same as men. We still get pregnant, we still give birth to children, we still breastfeed the children, and we as mothers have to stay with the children at the beginning of their lives. Of course, men can help us a lot, and with two-career partnerships, mostly the men and women share the work at home and share the care about children. But there are periods where, of course, the women cannot be substituted. And I think this, combined with the challenges of seeking appropriate career professionally and all the other challenges we face, can make it in certain periods of life for women more challenging.
Okay, let's now move on to the on-ground situation here. You've been in diplomacy for so many years. Can you tell us a bit more about what inspired you to enter diplomacy, and who were your role models and who are still your role models in politics?
For me, this role model didn't start with diplomacy. It already started at school. When at school, in high school, I mean, about half of us were girls and half were boys. So for me, it was just obvious. I mean, that we would do something afterwards. I didn't see myself as I have a certain role to play. But we were discussing about, I mean, who wants to go to university, etc. So for me, it was clear this was also my interest, also international relations. So it was clear for me that I wanted to go to university. At that time, I didn't still think about what to do, what to do in practice with this kind of study of international relations. But then at university it was the same. So there were also in that period, I would say almost half of all the students also were women, and about half were men. And it continued like that. So, and I must say, in Austria at that time, and my high school was in the 70s. My university study was in the 80s, until 88, and I was extremely lucky because I got the chance. But this also has to do with the government we had, especially in the 70s. And I don't know, maybe those who have a certain age might have heard or might remember our famous Chancellor Bruno Kreisky, who was Chancellor for 13 years, and who enabled really everybody to study, no matter what the income for a family was, no matter whether it was boys or girls. So this government, which lasted, let's say, 4 mandates, enabled practically everybody just to continue to start a career. And when starting then in the ministry, at the entrance exam, there were again about half of all were already women. So I must say I was lucky that I personally, I never met, let's say, resistance. So from my concrete career, I must say I'm grateful to the opportunity and to the support, not the specific by one particular person, but just the system enabled everybody not only to study, but also I had the impression that I was not pushed by somebody, but that what I reached, I did reach because I provided the results. And I think if this could be possible here and in all the other countries, I think we would see a great result. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very nice to hear someone saying things like the system pushed me. They gave me all the chances that we could get, and I got everything that I got from my own hard work and my own persistence. Same question for you. Your role models, your inspirations to enter the politics and such, I would say, men-dominated military power way of politics that you've been through your whole career?
Well, thinking while I was listening what Ulla was saying, actually there was never one single person. But all the people that I've met actually on my way, I mean, from upbringing, my grandfather, he was civil engineer. He was German actually, but somehow survived the turmoil and the war and everything. And the values he implanted into me. My mom, because she was kind of not compromising when she went after her goals, and she was extremely protective. And then my teachers. On every step there were people who were giving me advice, encouraging me. I see all these faces, even now, telling me, study, work hard. Don't wait the problem to become big problem. Every problem is small at the beginning. Believe you can do it. There's no limit. Education is for free. Just take everything that you can. Things like that. So it's many people, not just one single role model. But of course, the time and the prevailing social attitude towards, daring, courage, was very important. And of course, I cannot say anything else, but I was also lucky because I was offered the knowledge, the expertise, contact with people who were very knowledgeable. This is a privilege. And every day, today, I realize how privileged I was because not only did I, enter a career which I dreamed of ever since I was a little child, but during that career, I was able actually to help others. And that's, I think, the top of everything that you can actually do. And in spite of growing up in a country which was not, for example, like Austria or Italy, I knew who Kreisky was. I knew who Willy Brandt was. I knew who Kennedy was. So it's all, there's nothing you cannot do. And there was no one there to tell me you cannot be a soldier, you cannot be officer, you cannot be diplomat. And it's very important. So everything, things like that, people like that empower you. And that's very important.
Thank you. It's beautiful to hear when someone says it's the system that pushed me instead of only one person that held my back. We asked the same question about inspiration to our Czech ambassador.
My biggest life inspiration comes from my family. I remember how my grandmother and my mother kept telling me, keep smiling and life is good. Even if you feel it's not. But this is my motto.
And this is beautiful as well. I mean, it's when you have family to push you through the whole system, it's very important. Now, let's get back to the things that you said. Let's get back a bit to education. The system in Slovenia since 90s has been pushed forward in a way that Slovenia right now is among the most developed countries of the European Union, certainly most developed country of the Balkans. And it must have been because in large part of education. Being that you are an ambassador to Bosnia and that you have been in this region, what do you think about education right here and what do you think about education right now in time of COVID crisis?
I'll start with a personal remark that I really admire and commend all the parents who are faced with this difficult task overnight to provide education to their children, even though they are not educated to do that, not equipped, and many of them not in a situation to provide technical means to do that. As far as the education system, in times of crisis, it's actually no different than any other day. It's just another crisis which is all really touching every aspect of our life, not just education. But it's the education that can get you over the time of crisis and make sure that there is a future that you can actually shape according to your values and the values that you want to grow. So it's of key importance. And it's easier to observe, others and say, oh, in Bosnia and Herzegovina you should do this or you should do that. I refrain from doing that because I'm just a visitor, and there's not much I personally can do about it. But I can only point to the fact that things like knowledge, health, job, power, time, health, these are the factors that actually make that index how developed you are, how good is life in a certain society. So just, I think one should invest absolutely maximum in the area of education, because this is the key. There's no other.
Thank you very much. Again, the topic is about the system, the education, and so on and so forth. And right now we can see in Austria a lot of successful women of Bosnian and Herzegovinian roots that went there in times of war or after the war and got accepted and got pushed through the system, and right now they're occupying the highest political positions in the government. On the other hand, we can see right now in Bosnia there are few women that fought their way through, even though it was twice as hard as for men. But again, in most of the cases they have to ask their political bosses for the opinion and how to shape their politics. What is your comment on this? How do you comment Bosnian women in Austria being, I would say, more free to exercise their political views and to push forward politics, their political views in the government?
Let me first start with education as such. I think not only the fact that women and men, both, those who left the country, maybe not as small children, but who already got some education here in this country, we see that many of them have become not only politicians, but also business people, or have to have a certain career in whatever area, have made their way. So this already says something about the education here, that the education as such, that I'm not a pedagogue, but I think it's good. We also hear the same from many Austrian companies here. They invest here not only because the salaries are lower and that it's for them also profitable, but also because they say people who work in our company, they're well educated. So this says a lot about education in this country. This doesn't mean that there is not room for improvement. But this room for improvement is true for all countries. It's also for European countries. Because the development continues. Unless we mustn't just stand still. We also have to go with the development, with digitalization, etc. So it's a challenge for everybody. It's just we need to accept this challenge. And at least in the EU, it is a lot. Although education is a national competence, but still there's a lot of exchange. So whenever there is a new method, then we try to apply it, just to improve, not to have the tradition. When I think of my own education, I think it was good, but it was very old style. It was still, okay, the teacher told us something for 50 minutes, and we were listening, and then there was a test. So it was not this interaction, which is the normal way of doing it now. So there is a process, and it's just about adapting the system to that, and interlinking the system, your country, with the EU countries, for example, just to learn from each other what is the best way to do things. It is about the education. I think this is, and of course the rest, what you asked, this is more about not about education, but about the political system. How many chances you get, whether you get a job because you're good, or whether you get a job because you have veze or stele or what. I don't say it doesn't exist in other countries. I don't say it doesn't exist in Austria. It does. But it's not so easy, because there are many ways where you can, if you feel treated unfairly, then there are many ways you can challenge that. You can challenge that. You can go before court. You can go to the media. You can make trouble. So you need this kind of control system in a country. And I think if you have that, and if it works, then I think you are on a good way also to have the best people for the best positions. Thank you.
Can I just add something? It just crossed my mind when you asked me about education crisis. Education is a very strong system of reproduction of values, practices, everything that you do in society. Which means if you want changes, you need to start with education. Because if you have, all the changes you want, but if the education is reproducing inequalities, values that can get you into the better future, then you have a problem. So just wanted to add.
Thank you. We asked Czech ambassador about to what extent are women equal to men in Bosnian society?
I think the situation is similar as in many countries in this part of the world. Legally, I am sure that everything is equalized, that women are not discriminated by law. On the other hand, I'm sure that many women would say that they could feel better under certain circumstances. I know that the families here live in the society is more traditional in Bosnia and Herzegovina. On the other hand, I also see quite a number of women in different ways of life. So I can only wish there were more and they were satisfied.
Now it's a bit more of a hypothetical question. If you could choose one thing from your home country and implement it here without any kind of political pressures or political blockades, what would it be?
How much time do you have? Well, it's difficult just now, so spontaneously, just to say. I think since I've been here, what I very much appreciate in Austria, that people have confidence in that the law is working, that the legal system is working. So they have confidence that if they feel treated unfairly, they go to court, that they get a judgment which is implemented and which is usually considered fair. Maybe not everybody is happy about it, but at least then hearing all the reasons, hearing all the arguments, in the end that there is a general feeling, yes, this it's done fairly. So we have an independent judiciary. And independence in the end means that people need to have confidence in it. This is something which when I now think of Bosnia and Herzegovina, this is not something I can say from my own experience. This is just something which I constantly hear from people in this country. I hear it now. I've heard it when I was working here before for OHR, because many people approached OHR asking for, can you help? And of course, we had to say, you need to go to court. And then the reaction was, well, I don't have confidence. Or I did go to court, and I even got the judgment, but it wasn't implemented. So this was the experience I made. And I would wish that this confidence would exist here as well. So this would be one thing, one, I would say, positive thing from Austria, if this could be implemented here in the same way that people feel, yes, I can go to court and then I get a judgment which is implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question. You've had a bit more time, so it's unfair, but...
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. I always get a heads-up warning. Difficult to say. Actually, there is one thing that if I stay in the area which Ula entered, is Slovenia is a small society. I mean, in terms of number of people, where everybody knows everybody. 2 million. So according to experts on corruption, most of them are in Finland, they say you cannot avoid corruption in its really strict definition, because sooner or later you meet your colleague, someone from your family in the position, in the same organization that you are. So it's really difficult to be totally unbiased when, for example, you apply for a job or you try to do some business and things like that. But it's one thing. If one thing is for sure, that all the bad deeds come to an open day sooner or later. So either that's the media, or it's the simple fact that we have a high level of digitalization of everything that we do. And one of such things is also business between the state, ministries or state organizations, and business. So it's completely transparent. It's called Revisor. It's a system everybody can enter. I mean, it's public. And you can see exactly with whom is state doing business, with which companies, how many contracts were done, for how much money, for which item or service was purchased. So, which means that actually when you're faced with an attempt of corruption, there is something you can do about it. So you feel as an individual empowered to do something about it. You don't have to, be a policeman, a judge, prosecutor. Also as a citizen, there is something you can do about it. And it's a really feeling of safety and security, that what you do, the service you are provided, you can demand the right service. So.
Thank you. It would be a nice country without corruption and with a fair judicial system, but unfortunately we have both, or do not have one and have the other. We asked the Czech ambassador about what are the largest prejudices of women that she has ever encountered.
First time I heard about the festival soon after I arrived to Sarajevo at the beginning of this year, when the new festival started to be prepared. But of course then came COVID, the plans have to be changed, and the date and the form of the festival had to be adjusted. But I was looking forward to participate in person. I thought it will be a great opportunity to meet women from all around Bosnia and Herzegovina and learn more about their lives here. Unfortunately, we cannot do it this way, so I'm glad at least I can express myself through video.
Thank you. And this was the kind of thing that I wanted to say, because we are in time. We still have 5 to 10 more minutes. I would like you to send a bit of your final message to our audience, and to say about what do you see, why this festival is important for democracy and women's rights in Bosnia.
Since I've spent so much time already in Bosnia and Herzegovina, not so long as ambassador, I just arrived in January last year, but I was here before for 6 years, so I've had a lot of chances to travel around and to meet many, many people, many, many women, and I have seen, how powerful women there are, what they can achieve. So I would wish that, I don't say that there must be more women, or that they must get all the good positions in economy, in politics, etc. But at least they should have more important positions. Also in politics, because in the end, what is politics? Politics is also about deciding about all aspects of life. So if to create the basis, you need to be in politics, or you need to be a parliamentarian, because this is the basis for practically everything, be it in health or in education, etc. So to have more people, we have elections now. This goes for the local elections, this goes for other elections. So I would say the message, use your political rights, not only to vote, but also to get elected. Very often we see, and this has nothing to do with Bosnia and Herzegovina, that women, when they're asked something, the first thought, or very often, maybe I can't do it. I think we need to overcome this. You say, no, of course you can do it. I think men think much less about that they can't do it. So I think we need to overcome, we need to empower women. No, they can do it. They need to take just their destiny in their own hands. And I think events like this festival, is an extremely important event for women, and not only those who are here today, but as a signal for the entire Bosnia and Herzegovina, that people can do it, that women can do any job they want. And what I'm also convinced, because women are very often in their job very down to earth, very practical, that even again coming back to politics, if we had more women, I don't say that everybody would be like that, that women might try to be more solution oriented, maybe think more about how we can improve something, and maybe talk a bit less about ethnic background, etc., because the problems in various areas are exactly the same, be it in Trebinje or in Bileća or in Tuzla or wherever, or in Mostar, no matter. Of ordinary people, very often the problems are the same. So just get away from this always the same talk of history, what happened, why this innate, and why something cannot be done. I said, no, let's talk about what can be done, what would be a win-win situation for everybody. I think let's empower women just to include themselves more in this kind of talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Same goes here.
For your coffee. Yes, well, let me, first of all, this is not just about Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's about, I'd say, countries, look around you, any. For example, let's take Slovenia. I mentioned before that index of gender mainstreaming, and one of the the elements when assessing this index is power, money, and in Slovenia we have so the full score is 100. So Slovenian women reach in terms of money 83 points, in terms of power 59. So it tells you a lot. What my point would be about politics. If you want to change the world, the things around you, you have to enter the politics. I mean, of course there are other ways, but in terms of politics, where also in Slovenia you don't find many women, one thing that you need is power. And the fact is that at the gate of power are still men. And without men, women cannot be empowered. You cannot do it, single-handed, as they say. Other thing is, provided that you are healthy, that you have education, that you have a job, you need time, which means you don't need just time to go to work. Okay, we have conquered the labor market, for example in Slovenia, as you can tell, women have money, but you need time for politics, which means that you need kindergartens for children, schools for your children when they enter that age. You need the whole infrastructure of the leisure time, so you can take time from family, from work, from your mom, from your dad, whatever, and enter politics. And then media. Media is a system of reproduction of images, and media which reproduces stereotypes, untruths, prejudice, cannot help you. So festivals like this one is helping reproducing an image of half of your population that needs education, needs jobs, needs health, power, time, the works. So I congratulate you, and please don't stop. Please. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.